Imagine this. A king, once great, now facing utter ruin. It's the night before a huge battle. Destiny hangs in the balance. God's silent, dreams offer nothing. So what does he do?
Desperate measures.
Exactly. He disguises himself, sneaks through enemy territory in the dark, all to find a witch to speak to the dead.
It sounds like pure myth, but this is the story of King Saul from the Old Testament.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're exploring necromancy, seeking counsel from the departed.
And our guide for this is Sir James George Frazer's fascinating work, Folklore in the Old Testament, specifically Part 3, Chapter 8.
We'll start with that iconic tragic story of Saul and the Witch of Endor, and then broaden out looking at how this practice, this need to connect with the dead, shows up across totally different cultures and times.
And it's really striking, you see these threads, these common human impulses popping up everywhere, this desire to understand what's next, to connect with what's lost.
Yeah, grappling with death, destiny, it seems universal.
Absolutely. Different rituals, different beliefs, but often a similar core need.
Okay, so let's set the stage with Saul, Israel's first king, chosen because the people wanted a king, not just prophets.
And initially he looked the part, didn't he? Tall, impressive, brave, a good general, the whole package.
Right. But Frazer points out these fatal infirmities lurking beneath the surface.
Yeah, things like jealousy, suspicion, a really bad temper, weakness, indecision, and this deep melancholy, almost bordering on, well, madness at times.
You think of David, the young musician. His harp music was the only thing that could soothe Saul sometimes.
I know, well, yeah. And remember, the prophet Samuel picked Saul initially. But Saul wasn't really his own man. Frazer says he was like a tool for Samuel.
Until the break. Saul disobeys. Samuel is furious, turns his back on him for good.
Anoints David in secret.
Right. And refuses to even see Saul again. Mourns him like he's already dead.
And that's when Saul's decline really accelerates. The melancholy gets worse, the paranoia, the violent outbursts.
Trying to kill David, even his own son Jonathan. Awful stuff.
Truly a tragic fall. Which brings us to that fateful night.
The Philistines have invaded. Big army. Saul's army is facing them across the valley of Jezreel. It's the eve of a potentially catastrophic battle.
And Saul feels completely alone. Forsaken by God, he's tried everything, prophets, dreams, oracles. Nothing.
Silence. And the one thing that used to help, David's music, well, Saul drove him away himself.
So in that total despair, his mind goes to Samuel.
The one person he trusted. But Samuel's dead.
But what if? What if he could talk to Samuel, bring him back?
A risky thought, especially since Saul himself had outlawed witchcraft.
But he hears about a woman, a witch, still practicing in Endor nearby, and he decides he has to go.
Just think about the danger. The entire Philistine army is between him and Endor.
Suicide mission by day, so he waits for night, takes off his royal gear, puts on common clothes.
Just him and two attendants, slipping out into the darkness, past his own sleeping troops.
Across the valley floor.
Avoiding enemy patrols, until they reach his little village, Endor, described as just mud huts clinging to rocks. Pretty bleak. They find the cottage, there's a light. Maybe she was expecting them, who knows. The text doesn't say what she looked like.
Saul gets straight to the point. Use your familiar spirit, he says, and bring up the person I name.
Now, a familiar spirit, that's this idea of a supernatural helper, right? Something that lets the witch connect to the dead.
Exactly. And the witch, she's hesitant at first, says, the king outlawed this. You trying to get me killed?
Saul swears she'll be safe. On his honor. Then he tells her who he wants. Bring me up Samuel.
And boom. She looks at him properly, maybe sees his height, his bearing, and she gets it.
Why did you deceive me? You're Saul.
He calms her down. She starts the ritual, staring into nothingness, apparently.
But then her expression changes.
Yeah.
She's seeing something. Saul asks what?
I see a god coming up out of the earth, she says. Then, an old man, covered with a robe.
And Saul knows. It's Samuel. He bows down.
But Samuel's ghost isn't exactly welcoming. Why did you disturb me? He demands. Just like the living Samuel, stern, uncompromising.
Saul pours out his heart. The Philistines. God's silence. No guidance.
Samuel's response. Absolutely. Brutal. No pity. He repeats the prophecy. The kingdom's torn away. Given to David. Israel will lose the battle.
And then the final blow. Tomorrow, Samuel says, you and your sons will be with me in the underworld.
The ghost vanishes. And Saul just collapses. Faints dead away.
Wow. What a story. And it really implies necromancy wasn't some totally alien thing in ancient Israel, despite the laws against it.
Right, the laws were harsh death penalty for having a familiar spirit. But Saul's actions suggest people fell back on these heathen practices in desperate times.
And it wasn't just Saul. Later kings like Manasseh apparently brought it back, before Josiah clamped down again, a constant back and forth.
And that detail about only the witch seeing Samuel but Saul hearing him, Frazer thinks that points to a common performance element.
Like the witch describes what she sees while maybe doing some voice throwing.
Exactly. Ventriloquism, perhaps, making the voice seem like it's coming from the ground or just out there, hollow, ethereal, that classic ghost sound.
It makes you think even back then, there was this mix of genuine belief and maybe some stagecraft.
Definitely. The line between ritual and performance seems blurry across many of these accounts. Where does one end and the other begin?
It's fascinating how these themes echo. Let's look beyond Israel. Mesopotamia, for instance, the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Ah, yes, the 12th canto. Gilgamesh is grieving for his friend Eabani.
He begs Nergal, the god of the underworld.
Break open the chamber of the grave. Let Eabani's spirit rise like a wind.
And Nergal does it. Gilgamesh talks to the ghost.
And learns about the afterlife. Pretty grim stuff,
Yeah.
dust, worms. But also that proper burial helps the dead. Warriors fare better if remembered and buried right.
So again, this need for answers, for connection, even if the news isn't great,
Yeah.
and the importance of rituals on Earth affecting the afterlife.
Absolutely. That connection is key. What about ancient Greece? They had their own methods.
Homer's Odyssey, right. Ulysses goes to the edge of the world.
The gloomy land. He digs a trench, makes a sacrifice. Sheep's blood.
Because the ghosts need the blood to be able to speak.
That's the idea. They're weak, thirsty. He consults Tiresias first. But unlike maybe more widespread practices elsewhere, Greek necromancy was often tied to specific spots.
Oracles of the dead. Places thought to be gateways to Hades.
Yeah.
Like Aornum.
Exactly. And you get these wild stories like Periander of Corinth.
Oh yeah, the one whose dead wife complained about being cold.
Because her clothes were buried, not burned. So he gathered all the women of Corinth.
Stripped them naked and burned their clothes for his wife's ghost.
Talk about devotion or something. But it shows how seriously they took the ghost's demands. Afterwards, she apparently told him where his lost deposit was.
The atmosphere of those places must have helped too. Gloomy landscapes, rivers named after infernal streams.
Sets the mood, doesn't it? Primes you for the supernatural. And sometimes communication happened through dreams at these oracles.
Like that governor testing the oracle of Mopsus. Sends a sealed question.
And dreams a voice saying black, which perfectly answered his secret question, should I sacrifice a white bull or a black?
Incredible. Or the man, Ulysses, in Italy, asking why his son died. Dreams his father's ghost and his son's spirit.
Who tell him the son died because basically death was better for him than life. A kind of fatalistic comfort, maybe.
And this dream connection pops up elsewhere too. North Africa, Celebes. Sleeping on graves for guidance.
But they also had direct evocations in Greece, not just dreams. Aeschylus's play, The Persians.
Queen Atassa summons King Darius's ghost. In broad daylight, apparently. For political advice after a defeat.
Right. And later figures, philosophers like Apollonius of Tyana supposedly conjured Achilles. Even Roman emperors like Nero got in on the act, trying to appease the ghosts of their victims.
Did it work for Nero?
Not really. The ghosts apparently just gave vague warnings of judgment, making things worse. Seems you can't always escape your conscience, even with magic.
So this isn't just an ancient Mediterranean thing. Frazer shows it's truly global. What about, say, African traditions?
Oh, definitely. Among the Baganda in Central Africa, dead kings were consulted. They preserved the jawbone. That's where the spirits supposedly lingered.
The jawbone. Interesting detail.
Yeah. A medium would drink from the king's skull, smoke tobacco, get possessed, and speak in the dead king's voice. The living king would get advice through an interpreter. It's all about maintaining that royal lineage and authority.
Wow. So the past directly advises the present.
Precisely. Other groups had different methods. The Yui people in Togoland summoned souls on the 40th day after death. It was very emotional, the ghost weeping, complaining, sometimes accusing someone.
More about grief and maybe justice, then.
Seems like it. Then you go to Oceania, the Maoris in New Zealand. They really feared and revered ancestral spirits, especially chiefs. Believed they were always watching.
And the spirits could possess things. Or people.
Yeah, and their voice was described as this weird half-whistle, half-whisper. Frazer recounts the story of a Maori Witch of Endor, an old woman in a hut.
Dim light, she covers her head. Rustling sounds. Then this whistling voice recognizes a dead chief.
But the English guy watching was skeptical. Noticed she wasn't breathing while the voice spoke, then gasped for air after. Smelled like ventriloquism to him.
And the ghost made excuses for not appearing. Said it was a lizard or something.
Exactly. And asked for tobacco and a coat, which made the dead chief's own son laugh. It highlights that tension again, belief versus performance.
There's another Maori story, much more tragic.
Yes, witnessed by an Irishman. A priest evokes a young chief killed in battle, nighttime, big house, flickering fire, sobbing relatives.
A voice comes from the dark. The sister rushes towards it, has to be held back, faints. Another girl cries out she'll follow him.
And later, tragically, she does, finds a gun and kills herself. The ghost itself had this melancholy chat with his brother, asked for his pet pig and gun to be given to the priest.
That detail about the voice receding from the room, under the ground, into the air, chilling.
It really underscores the emotional power these rituals held. Lives were profoundly affected.
Moving across the globe again, what about Asia? Sumatra? The bodies?
They had mediums who would meticulously imitate the dead person voice, walk, mannerisms, even clothes. It often moved relatives to tears.
And they consulted for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah, family secrets, health prognosis, finding lost things, locating people. Pretty practical stuff sometimes. But the mediums described possession as intense. Seeing the ghost, feeling dragged, the world looking strange. It took a toll. They often got sick, some even died.
So definitely not just putting on a show for them.
Doesn't sound like it. Even in the Arctic, you find forms of this. Eskimo shamans.
Conjuring with a stick.
Yeah, in Labrador. Rapping on the ground to summon and dismiss spirits. In Alaska, spirits supposedly rose to the shaman's body. Again, skeptics pointed to ventriloquism.
And China. With its strong ancestor worship, you'd expect it there.
Absolutely. Very common, often done by older women. Archdeacon Gray saw a ceremony in Canton back in the 1860s.
The witch set up an altar, went into a trance.
Sprinkled rice, announced the spirit arrived, family weeping. The spirit talked about being happy in the afterlife, family stuff. Even mentioned a son far away, which amazed the family.
Though Gray suspected she'd done her homework beforehand.
Right. That practical element again. Another account from Shantung involves a dancing spirit, an old witch, tambourine, grimacing, hopping, then suddenly shouting, "The ancestor comes and eats!" Lights out, lights on, food gone. Then she answers questions in a shrill voice.
Very theatrical. And their reliance on familiar spirits sounds a lot like the Witch of Endor story.
It does, doesn't it? That term crops up. Frazer notes the similarity.
Let's touch on one more. The Mordvins in Russia. Their 40th day evocation sounds quite different.
It really does. It feels much more like a community ritual, a performance piece almost. Frazer himself questions if it's more drama than magic at that point.
As belief fades, the ritual hangs on.
Maybe.
Well,
Or maybe it serves a different purpose. Communal grief processing, reinforcing social bonds. A family member represents the deceased.
so they're chosen because they resemble the dead person.
Yeah. They go to the grave, invite the spirit back. The representative then dresses in the deceased's clothes, lies on their bed, gets questioned about the afterlife, gives advice.
Live in peace, don't steal.
Exactly. Then there's this whole ritual of providing for the ghost, symbolically chopping firewood, collecting money in a birch bark box.
Snoping over a fire.
To be delivered from death, they believed. Finally, a sacrifice, a feast, and the representative is carried back to the grave, has a final meal there, gives a blessing, and then sort of sheds the role.
It's incredibly elaborate,
Yeah.
but feels less like summoning an actual ghost and more like enacting a memory.
It certainly seems that way, a very structured way to say goodbye and integrate the loss.
So, wrapping this all up, from King Saul's desperate, terrifying encounter to the highly ritualized Mordvin drama.
Through Greek oracles, African jawbones, Maori whistles, Chinese trances, it's an amazing spectrum.
The methods are so diverse, but that core impulse to connect, to seek solace or guidance from beyond the veil, it seems deeply ingrained.
It really does. And looking at all this, you have to ask, what does it tell us about ourselves, about the human condition?
Is it fundamentally about seeking knowledge or coping with grief, maybe trying to exert some control over the uncontrollable, like death and fate?
Or maybe it reflects our deepest hopes and fears about what happens after we die. It's probably a mix of all those things, varying by culture and individual.
Frazer's deep dive really illuminates this centuries-long human struggle, trying to make peace with loss, find meaning, find comfort somehow.
Absolutely. And maybe a thought to leave you with is this. How do these ancient impulses echo today? We might not be summoning ghosts in the same way, Or are we?
Hmm. Where do you see traces of that need to connect with the unseen or wrestle with mortality in our modern world? Think about how we remember the dead, our fascination with the afterlife, maybe even the stories we tell ourselves. Something to ponder.